So, if a commercial airline pilot gets a multi-million-dollar flight simulator to practice, a catastrophic engine failure, why do corporate leaders managing lethal industrial hazards only get a 40-page slide deck?
Right, or maybe a fluorescent lit conference room if they're lucky.
Exactly. I mean, we expect pilots to experience the vibration, the alarms, the sheer sensory overload safely in a box, so that if the real thing ever happens, their muscle memory takes over.
Yeah, that muscle memory is absolutely crucial.
But if you look at leaders in high stakes industries, people who deal with literal smoke on the board scenarios, their crisis training is usually reduced to a multiple choice question on a computer screen.
Or, an awkward role play with the guy from accounting.
Right. And it's a pretty glaring double standard when you think about it.
It really is. We relentlessly drill the technical mechanics of a job, but we completely neglect the psychological reality of executing those mechanics under extreme stress.
Which is exactly what we're getting into today. Welcome to today's deep dive, where our mission is to explore how we train for the absolute worst case scenarios.
Because the underlying issue here is that in real-world industrial failures, the hardest part of solving the crisis is rarely a single technical fact. It is almost always the people.
That's the human element, yeah. And we are looking at a brand new press release that just dropped yesterday, July 29, 2026, from a company called EON AI Ventures.
A very interesting release, too.
Yeah, they are introducing a massive leap forward in this space. They're taking artificial intelligence, moving it way beyond the polite, helpful chatbot paradigm and turning it into a high-stakes pressure cooker training simulator.
Designed specifically to test human leadership under fire.
Exactly. They're calling it the Situation Room Table.
Okay, let's unpack this.
If the technology for complex simulations has existed for years in aviation and the military, why hasn't there been a proper simulator for the human interpersonal elements of a crisis until right now?
Well, because human behavior, and particularly human panic, is incredibly difficult to simulate authentically.
It usually just feels cheesy, right?
Exactly. It feels completely scripted. In a standard classroom setting, you have the luxury of time. You can consult a manual. You can pause and debate the optimum path.
Which never happens in real life.
Never. The source material for this new tool points out a gritty reality. When an incident occurs on an industrial site, you have completely competing interests happening simultaneously, and the clock is ticking.
The press release actually paints a really vivid picture of that exact tension. It describes this scenario where operations wants the unit back online immediately to stop bleeding money.
Right, time is money.
Meanwhile, the safety department demands absolute certainty before anyone moves a muscle, and the permit desk refuses to sign off on anything they can't legally defend.
So you've got three people essentially shouting at you.
Yes.
Yeah.
You, as the supervisor, are standing in the dead center of this triangle of demands. Everyone is stressed, they are all talking at once, and you have to make a call.
And generic roleplay simply cannot recreate that specific type of cognitive collision.
It just doesn't trigger the same stress.
No, it doesn't. Usually, corporate roleplay invents a fictional, highly dramatized world that has no grounding in how real industrial incidents unfold. Your brain knows it's fake,
Right.
so your amygdala doesn't fire. You might practice using corporate buzzwords, but you aren't practicing the art of making a difficult trade-off under the exact same pressures you will face on the floor.
I actually want to push back on a specific term they use in the release, though, because they refer to this as soft skills training.
Ah, yeah, that is an interesting choice of words.
If you are dealing with the examples they list in this document, things like lockout, tagout procedures, hot work permits, or nitrogen hazards, these are absolutely not soft skills.
They are critical safety procedures.
Just to contextualize this for you listening, if you get a lockout tagout wrong, meaning a machine isn't properly depowered and tadlocked before a mechanic climbs inside it, you're looking at a fatal accident.
A literal life or death situation.
Exactly. Or if a hot work permit is mishandled and someone starts welding near volatile chemicals, the facility could level a city block.
Yeah, the stakes couldn't be higher.
And nitrogen hazards. Nitrogen displaces oxygen silently. People just, they pass out and don't come home to their families. To me, these are life-saving survival skills.
I agree completely. Calling them soft skills undersells the reality.
Which makes me wonder, if AI is essentially just math and code, how does it actually recreate the visceral, irrational human stress of those life or death scenarios without just feeling like a clunky video game where you click A or B?
Well, what's fascinating here is how they achieve that realism by completely abandoning fiction.
Oh, really? So no made-up scenarios?
None. The Situation Room table does not invent fake, dramatic stories out of thin air. The simulation is grounded entirely in verified industrial lessons.
Got it.
Dan Lajerskar from EON AI Ventures is quoted in the release saying they start from, quote, lessons the industry already paid for the hard way.
Paid for the hard way. Man, that is a heavy way to phrase it. But it implies they are literally using the blueprints of past disasters.
That's exactly what they are doing. They are taking the documented, verified facts of what actually failed.
Like the actual timelines and data?
Yes, what the
Nice.
specific cognitive traps look like, and the precise moment when a team absolutely must stop operations to prevent a catastrophe. Because it's built on real historical data, the simulation enforces realistic consequences.
So you can't just game the system.
Exactly, it doesn't let you cheat.
Mm.
If you make a poor judgment call to appease operations and rush a repair, the virtual Situation Room table dynamically closes off safer options for you down the line.
Oh, wow. So your bad choices snowball.
Yes, your choices actively compound into greater danger, just like reality.
But the most important part, as the release emphasizes, is that nobody gets hurt. You get to practice the incredibly hard conversation before it happens for real.
Which is invaluable.
So let's look under the hood of this architecture. Because for an AI to manage this level of dynamic, branching consequence without hallucinating a bunch of nonsense, the tech stack has to be incredibly tightly controlled.
Well, it is. It's a very specific setup.
Instead of just listing the features, let's walk through what it actually feels like to step into this system.
Well, it operates as a layered journey. At the foundational level, you enter what they call the Situation Room.
Okay, the situation room.
Yeah. This is the core library of carefully verified courses about those real industrial failures we just discussed. This is where the hard, immutable facts live.
The actual blueprints of the disaster.
Right. The exact timelines, the pressure readings, the specific procedural breakdowns.
So that's the raw historical data, the ground truth. But, reading a history book doesn't create pressure.
Which leads to the next layer, which they call Situation Room voices.
Voices. Okay.
This allows you to interactively interrogate a specific job seat about those historical lessons.
What do you mean by a job seat?
Well, you aren't just reading a report. You are essentially interviewing the maintenance role or the health, safety, and environment HSE role. You are interacting with the isolated priorities of that specific department based entirely on verified plant facts.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. If voices is like pulling witnesses into a quiet room one by one to get their isolated perspective, the new Situation Room table is like throwing all those conflicting witnesses into an elevator with you.
Hitting the emergency stop and forcing you to make a final ruling.
Exactly. It's a multi-agent chess match. You have 3 different opponents playing against you on the same board at the same time, and they all have different win conditions.
It's intense. You have up to 3 AI colleagues, say a field operator, a permit coordinator, and an HSE advisor, pushing their competing agendas simultaneously.
And they're all talking to you.
Yes, you have to mediate, speak with them, and they react to your choices in real time under a strict time limit.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
It is. And all of this friction is hosted on an overarching application they call Brainy Soft Skills.
The app that runs the whole thing.
Right. It manages the avatars, renders the scene, and provides a private AI coach that whispers tips into your ear.
Like a literal voice in your ear.
Yeah, culminating in a highly detailed score report on your decision-making process at the end.
But looking at this whole multi-agent setup, I have to point out a potential flaw here. If this is all driven by large language models, how on earth do we trust it?
That is the million-dollar question.
We've all seen AI make things up, hallucinate facts, or just try to be overly pleasing to the user. If I start making terrible decisions at the table, what stops the AI from just inventing a sudden fictional gas leak to make the scenario more dramatic?
Or hallucinating a fake safety protocol that teaches the user the wrong thing.
Exactly. Are they air-gapping the creative storytelling engine from the factual database?
This raises an important question, and your deduction about air gapping is exactly how they solve it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have implemented what they call the ANSI rule. First, to establish baseline trust, the AI avatars are clearly labeled as synthetic.
So no deepfake tricks.
No attempt to trick the user into thinking they are interacting with a human role player. But the mechanical safeguard is that the system is strictly siloed into essentially 2 different brains.
Explain how that dual brain mechanism works in practice, because that sounds complicated.
It's actually pretty elegant. The creative conversational engine, the part of the AI that actually speaks to you and reacts to your tone only, has read-only access to the factual database.
Read only. Okay.
Right. Colorful storytelling is restricted entirely to the private coach whispering in your ear to keep you engaged. But that narrative engine literally cannot overwrite or alter the historical data of the incident.
So the plant data is completely protected.
The verified facts from the Situation Room library are locked in stone. The teaching stories never get mathematically mixed into the verified plant data.
So the AI is essentially handcuffed to reality. It can't suddenly decide that water puts out a grease fire just because it makes the conversation flow better.
Exactly. And to maintain absolute authority over the subject matter, EON AI Ventures includes a crucial human layer called EON Tacit.
EON tacit. And what does that do?
It relies on something they call anchor interviews.
Anchor interviews, meaning they still rely on human beings to program the baseline.
Yes, human beings are essential here. EON Tacit ensures that real, seasoned industry experts remain the ultimate source of ground truth.
So the veterans are still in charge.
Exactly. They conduct these anchor interviews to capture the nuance that isn't always written down in a manual, the gut feelings, the unwritten red flag.
The stuff you only learn from 30 years on the job.
Right. The system is fundamentally designed with the philosophy that human experts still own the deepest answers, and the AI is merely the delivery mechanism for that expertise.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you, the listener? We have this incredibly sophisticated, historically accurate, high-stress simulator.
It's quite a package.
And the press release notes that pilot materials are currently available for internal proof of concept. They are initially building this specifically for oil and gas teams.
Which makes sense given the extreme physical hazards in that industry.
Totally. But I want to push back on this being just a niche industrial application. If you work in finance or healthcare or corporate logistics, why should you care about a simulator designed for nitrogen hazards?
That's a very fair question.
Will this collide and decide style of AI training eventually jump the fence and replace standard HR training in everyday office jobs?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this announcement is a massive signal for every industry.
Every industry.
Yes. The press release explicitly states that this approach is designed to extend to other high-stakes sectors over time. To fully grasp where this is heading, you have to look at the pedigree of EON AI Ventures.
They aren't exactly the new kids on the block, right?
No, they aren't some software startup that just discovered generative AI 6 months ago. They have a 25-year foundation in immersive learning technology deployed across more than 80 countries.
25 years. I mean, that means they were building virtual reality and spatial computing training environments decades before it became a mainstream buzzword.
Precisely. And this new Situation Room table is not a standalone app. It fits into a much larger, highly integrated ecosystem they call work intelligence.
Work intelligence, let's break that down because it sounds like a deliberate pivot away from the term artificial intelligence.
It is a deliberate application of it, yeah. They define work intelligence as the captured, verified, and compounding knowledge of how expert work is actually done.
So it's not just about the machine.
No, it isn't just about making a machine smart. It's about making the collective workforce smarter.
Got it.
They achieve this through an ecosystem they call the intelligence flywheel, which relies on 3 distinct tools mentioned in the release: Genesis, Field IQ, and Assess IQ.
Walk us through how those 3 actually connect to create a flywheel.
We'll think of Genesis as the authoring engine. It allows an enterprise to take a standard operating procedure, say a 100-page manual on handling a chemical spill, and rapidly generate a 3D AI-guided scenario.
So Genesis builds the virtual world.
It builds the world. Then you have Field IQ, which is the spatial component.
Spatial meaning in the real world.
Yes, it tracks the physical environment and brings the AI guidance out of the headset or tablet and into the actual physical workspace, mapping the digital instructions onto real-world equipment.
Oh, that is very cool.
Finally, you have Assess IQ, which is the analytics engine. It quietly evaluates every single decision the worker makes in the simulation.
So it's watching you.
It tracks their eye movements, measures their hesitation, and scores their ultimate judgment.
So Genesis builds the test, Field IQ administers it in the real world, and Assess IQ grades it.
You got it.
And because it's a flywheel, the data from Assess IQ feeds back into Genesis to make the next simulation even more targeted.
Exactly. It's a continuous loop of improvement.
That is a massive paradigm shift. Right now, in most industries, expert knowledge is locked inside the brains of a few veteran employees who have been there for 30 years.
Right. the siloed expertise problem.
We all know that one person who knows how to fix the server when it crashes, or knows exactly how to pacify the biggest client when they are furious, and when those veterans retire, their tacit knowledge just evaporates.
It's gone forever.
This work intelligence ecosystem seems designed to extract that intuition, verify it, and make it compound for the rest of the company.
It democratizes expertise. Imagine the implications for a hospital.
Oh, healthcare would be huge for this.
Right. Instead of clicking through a generic, mandatory compliance video about patient privacy, a newly promoted charge nurse is dropped into a virtual situation room.
Chaos immediately ensues.
Exactly. You have an AI doctor demanding immediate access to a sensitive file to save a life, an AI legal officer screaming about IPA violations, and a panicked AI family member demanding answers. It's that exact same collide and decide pressure, adapted to a completely different industry's worst-case scenario.
It fundamentally redefines what it means to prepare someone for leadership. It moves training away from the passive consumption of information, where you just memorize rules to pass a quiz.
And transforms it into the active experience of navigating friction.
You aren't just learning what the rules are, you are learning how to enforce them when three highly motivated people are actively trying to bend them.
And because this is driven by scalable AI rather than expensive human consultants, you can run that simulation 100 times.
You can practice until it's second nature.
You can explore every possible branching outcome of a crisis. You can intentionally make the wrong choice just to see how fast the situation deteriorates.
Which is something you could never afford to do in reality or with live role players.
Never. The cost would be astronomical.
It really is a profound evolution. We are moving from using AI as a basic assistant that drafts our emails to AI as a sparring partner that actively tests our mettle and exposes our psychological blind spots in a crisis.
It's a mirror for our own decision-making.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, there is one detail underlying this entire press release that keeps bouncing around in my head. And I think it points to a much bigger, almost philosophical question about where all this is heading.
I think I know where you're going with this. The press release does go out of its way to reassure the user that humans are still the ultimate authority.
It really hammers that point home.
It leans heavily on the honesty rule, clearly labeling the AI so no one is fooled, and it repeatedly insists that through the EON tacit anchor interviews, real human experts still own the deepest answers.
They are very careful to position the Situation Room table as merely a tool.
Right. They're explicitly framing the AI as a simulator. The human is the captain. The AI is just the holodeck helping the captain practice.
But consider the trajectory of this work intelligence flywheel you just described. You have Assess IQ continuously capturing the data of how expert work is done.
Over millions of iterations.
Right.
Yeah.
You have these AI avatars facilitating millions of simulated crises across the energy sector, healthcare, finance, testing endless permutations of human decision-making.
The system is relentlessly observing what choices lead to catastrophic failure and what choices lead to a safe resolution.
It is learning from the aggregate friction of every single simulation. Every time a human supervisor makes a mistake at the virtual table, every time someone panics and rushes a hot work permit, the AI logs the precursor behaviors that led to that failure.
It sees the patterns we can't see.
Which brings up a wildly provocative implication that they obviously didn't put in the press release, but feels technologically inevitable.
That's it.
If the system compounds knowledge over millions of iterations, cataloging every possible human error and every optimal recovery path, might the AI eventually discover safer, more efficient crisis resolutions than the human experts themselves?
It forces us to ask, at what point does the human ground truth become second best to the AI's compounded mathematical experience?
Exactly. Will there come a day when the AI isn't just simulating the Situation Room table for us to practice in a headset, but actually sitting at the head of the table in a real-life crisis, telling us exactly what to do?
It's entirely possible. If the system has successfully navigated 10 million simulated plant failures, and the human facility manager has navigated exactly 2, who do you actually want making the final call when the real smoke is on the board?
That is a staggering thought to leave on. We start out just wanting a better flight simulator so the human can learn to fly the plane in a thunderstorm.
But eventually, the simulator gets so impossibly good at predicting the weather, analyzing the mechanics, and understanding the psychology of the crew, you have to wonder if we should just let the simulator fly the plane for real.
It really makes you question our long-term assumptions about the supremacy of human intuition in a high-stakes crisis. To everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this exploration of EON AI Ventures, the Situation Room Table, and the compounding future of work intelligence.
It's a brave new world out there.
Keep questioning your assumptions, keep exploring those new perspectives, and remember, the next time you're stuck in a boring, fluorescent light training seminar, just imagine the AI version where three digital avatars are screaming at you to make a decision.
It might just make you appreciate the boring slide deck a little bit more.
It really might. That concludes our deep dive for today. Take care, everyone.